Hello, friends, and welcome to Jewels of Truth. My name is Daniel Fontenot. Today we will continue to study the book of Daniel, chapter 11. And yes, we are still studying particularly verse 4. And the name of this study is The Breaking Up of Donald Trump's Kingdom. Yes, the breaking up of Donald Trump's kingdom. And if you have been following this series of studies on Daniel chapter 11, you know that we have been saying that the mighty king of verse 3, which stands up and rules with great dominion and does according to his will, that is Donald Trump. He is the fourth king, or the fourth president, if you will, since George Bush, according to verse 2. Okay, so the entire verses 3 and 4 says, "And a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those." So, we go to Daniel chapter 8 and verse 8, which speaks of the same history. This is our first introduction to this. "Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong," that he-goat being the kingdom of Greece, "when he was strong, the great horn was broken." That's Alexander the Great. "And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven." Daniel chapter 8 and verse 22, speaking of the same history, says, "Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power." All right? And then I'm going to remind us that Daniel 11 and verse 3 represents the threefold union of the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. That is, the papacy, the United Nations, and apostate Protestantism. We have already covered that subject in previous videos, and I've given the reasons why I have taken that position. Okay, the mighty king that stands up, rules with great dominion. That's Donald Trump he is the president of the United States, but he then becomes also the head of the United Nations. So there you have two of the threefold union. And then the third one is doing according to his will, which represents in one way the papacy, but not directly, because he does according to his will as the papacy does. He follows in the steps of the papacy, just like apostate Protestantism follows in the steps of the papacy. So, one of our main subjects in this study is what is represented by the four winds of heaven. Because you remember, in verse 4, it says that his kingdom, it is broken, and it is divided toward the four winds of heaven. So let's look at that. So I'm not going to read this in all of these entire passages. I'm going to read the main points of it. But as the statement there, as you see it there on page 1 of your notes, in Great Controversy, page 493, it says that the four winds of heaven striving upon the great sea represent the terrible scenes of conquest and revolution by which kingdoms have attained to power. Okay, it says that the great kingdoms that have ruled the world were presented to the prophet Daniel as beasts of prey, rising when the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. That's Daniel 7 and verse 2. In Revelation 17, an angel explained that waters represent peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Winds are a symbol of strife. The four winds of heaven striving upon the great sea represent the terrible scenes of conquest and revolution by which kingdoms have attained to power. Another one here, speaking of the four winds, and which these statements, these following statements, they pretty much, you might say, expand or agree with the previous one, that the conquest and revolutions, they are represented by these four winds of strife. Okay, they are the means by which kingdoms have attained to power. Okay, so it says there in Testimonies, Volume 6, page 14, we are standing upon the threshold of great and solemn events. Prophecies are fulfilling. Strange, eventful history is being recorded in the books of heaven. Everything in our world is in agitation. There are wars and rumors of wars. The nations are angry, and the time of the dead has come, that they should be judged. Events are changing to bring about the day of God, which hasteth greatly. Only a moment of time, as it were, yet remains. But while already nation is rising against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, there is not now a general engagement. As yet, the four winds are held until the servants of God shall be sealed in their foreheads with the seal of God. Then the powers of earth will marshal their forces for the last great battle. So when you read there, when she says nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, she's quoting partly Matthew, the words of Christ in Matthew chapter 24. Okay, and this nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, that's the wars, okay, the rumors of wars, which are represented by the four winds of heaven. All right? And then another one from Volume 6 of the Testimonies, page 408. The restraining Spirit of God is even now being withdrawn from the world. Hurricanes, storms, tempest, fire, and flood, disasters by sea and land, follow each other in quick succession. Science seeks to explain all these. The signs thickening around us, telling of the near approach of the Son of God, are attributed to any other than the true cause. Men cannot discern the sentinel angels restraining the four winds, that they shall not blow until the servants of God are sealed. And when God shall bid his angels loose the winds, what comes? There will be such a scene of strife as no pen can picture. So strife, wars, contentions, etc., they are represented by the four winds. And then one more on that point from the Spirit of Prophecy. Testimonies to Ministers, page 444. If such scenes as this are to come, such tremendous judgments on a guilty world, where will be the refuge for God's people? How will they be sheltered until the indignation be overpassed? John sees the elements of nature, earthquake, tempest, and political strife, represented as being held by four angels. These winds are under control until God gives the word to let them go. There is the safety of God's church. The angels of God do his bidding, holding back the winds of the earth, that the winds should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree, until the servants of God shall be sealed, or should be sealed, in their foreheads. The mighty angel is seen ascending from the east, or sunrising. The mightiest of angels has in his hand the seal of the living God, or of him who alone can give life, who can inscribe upon the foreheads the mark of inscription, not the mark of the beast, but the seal of God, to whom shall be granted immortality, eternal life. It is the voice of this highest angel that has authority to command the four angels to keep in check the four winds until this work was performed and until he should give the summons to let them loose. Okay, so when he lets those angels, when those four angels let those winds loose, you have war, political strife, earthquake, tempest, etc. All right. And okay, so agreeing with that, Elder E.J. Wagner in the Bible Echo of an Australasian Signs of the Times, January 15th, 1889, he says, in agreement with that, he says there are two other symbols, namely the winds and the sea. The winds and the sea, but they are easily explained. The four beasts, kingdoms, came up as the result and strife of the four winds of heaven upon the great sea. Winds blowing on the sea produce commotion, but the commotion by which nations rise and fall is war. Therefore, we must conclude that the four winds blowing on the great sea represent strife among the people of the earth. And, well, we shall see that this is correct. So again, kingdoms come up as the result of strife, war, and commotion. So, just as the four beasts, kingdoms, of Daniel 7 came up as the result of the strife of the four winds of heaven, in the same way, Alexander's kingdom was divided into four parts as a result of the strife and war between Alexander's generals. All right. So here we're talking about Alexander here, as is Daniel 11 in verses 3 and 4. Stephen Haskell, in his book, The Story of the Seer of Patmos, page 188, tells us, Alexander left no heirs to the throne who could hold the reins of government. His eldest son was a child of 5. A number of strong men had acted as generals of the army during the march through Asia, and on the death of the emperor, 8 of these contended for supremacy. None, however, were strong enough to subdue all the others. For about 20 years there was war and contention. Finally, in 302 BC, it was settled that Ptolemy should hold Egypt. Seleucus should take Syria and the east. Lysimachus had Thrace and Asia Minor, and Cassander was located in Greece, and so on. The main point there, again, these kingdoms come up as a result of all of this strife and war, which are represented by the four winds of heaven. Now, the four winds of heaven also represent the 4 points of the compass: north, south, east, and west, of course. All right? So we have this statement from A.T. Jones in his book, The Marshalling of the Nations, page 30. Then the angel speaking of Grecia continues, and a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, etc. As is well known, after the death of Alexander the Great, his kingdom was divided into 4 parts. One general took the western part, and he explains the division, okay? Then thus the kingdom was divided exactly toward the 4 points of the compass. Presently, these 4 generals fell into dissensions and wars, and the power was merged into 2, the king of the north and the king of the south. The king of the north occupied all of the northern part and the Adriatic Sea to the river Indus, and the king of the south all the rest. From about the 6th to the 16th verse of Daniel 11, the angel talks about the king of the north and the king of the south in the history of the successors of Alexander. And in the 16th verse of Daniel 11, the king of the north and the king of the south are not specified again until the 40th verse and the time of the end. So again, the verse says, and when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, etc. So wind is defined, that word wind is defined in the Strong's Concordance, it's a wind by resemblance breath, is figurative of life, anger, unsubstantiality, by extension a region of the sky, by resemblance spirit, but only of a rational being, including its expression and functions, so on and so forth. Okay. And so you have here Matthew 24:31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from what? The four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay? So, this is again indicating, well, let's go ahead and read the definition of wind in that, there in the Greek. From the base of G109, wind, by implication, the four quarters of the earth. So, north, south, east, and west, all over the earth. So Alexander's kingdom was divided. It was broken up, and of course, it was scattered or broken in toward the four winds of heaven, all over the known world. Okay, but in the end of the world, Babylon is broken up, and it is scattered to the four winds of heaven. All right. Great Controversy 644. I'm not going to read the entire passage, but this is in the context of the second coming of Christ and the resurrection of the righteous living and the righteous dead, throughout the length and breadth of the earth. This is echoing the words of Christ when he says that he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other, all over the earth. And so, throughout the length and breadth of the earth, the dead shall hear that voice, and they that hear shall live, and the whole earth shall ring with the tread of an exceeding great army of every nation and kindred and tongue and people, all over the earth. A.T. Jones in the Bible Echo and Signs of the Times, June 8, 1886, tells us, as soon as the angel mentions Grecia, he skips the remaining history of Persia and sketches Greece, saying, and a mighty king shall stand up, Alexander the Great, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken. Okay? When Donald Trump stands up, okay, when he becomes the president, shortly after he becomes the president, not right after, but soon after he becomes the president, and then he thereafter becomes the head of the UN, his kingdom shall be broken. This should tell us, if you have been following these presentations, this should tell Seventh-day Adventists especially how near we are to the end. Now that Donald Trump has become the 47th president of the United States, these verses are telling us, brothers and sisters, that we are very, very, very near to the end, okay? Because when Babylon is broken, that's it. It's all over, okay? His kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. Okay, at Alexander's death, there was a period of confusion for about 20 years among the many able governors and generals of his great dominion. Finally, a fourfold division was accomplished, as in the words of the angel, toward the four winds of heaven, the east, the west, the north, and the south. Okay? And that was from A.T. Jones, the Bible Echo and Signs of the Times, June 8, 1896. Notice, in agreement with all of this, is Jeremiah chapter 50, verses 23 and 24. A sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? This is Babylon, which, as I said in the beginning, I want to remind us here that verse 3, Daniel 11 verse 3 represents the threefold union of the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet, the papacy, the United Nations, and apostate Protestantism. That is the threefold union of the beast. That is the threefold union of Babylon. That's great Babylon. And so it says a sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. Babylon is broken, just like it is represented by Daniel 11 and verse 4. Another one here from Isaiah 8 verses 9 through 12. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Emphasis on broken in pieces. And give ear, all ye of far countries, and gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Notice broken is in this verse 3 times. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. For the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Isaiah 8, 9 through 12. And we come back to the same verse, the original verse, Daniel 11 verses 3 and 4. And a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion. That's Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. And so here we come to the end of this presentation, the breaking up of Donald Trump's kingdom, and it will surely be broken up. All right, so if you agree with this presentation, then by all means, tap that like button so that it can be sent far and wide to those who are hungering for the bread of life. And if you have any questions or comments concerning this presentation, you can place them at the bottom of this video. I read all of them. And if you haven't subscribed, we would highly encourage you to do so. We thank you for joining us here at Jewels of Truth. We hope and pray that you will have a good day in the Lord.